The Senate is now debating President Biden's $1.9 trillion relief package. It's the last step before they vote on the bill. Democrat leaders promise they'll pass it before next week with or without Republican support. So what does the nearly $2 trillion cover? A single House Democrat broke ranks with his party and voted against the controversial election reform bill H.R. 1. He gives insight into why he opposed the bill. And New York officials confirmed on Thursday they left out nursing home death data from a COVID-19 report last year. This comes amid growing calls for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to resign. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's kick off with the stimulus check. The Senate is now debating Biden's $1.9 trillion relief package. The Senate announced President Biden's relief plan Thursday. All Republicans voted against starting debate on the plan. All Democrats and the two independents voted for it. Vice President Kamala Harris broke the tie. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tried to waive reading the bill, but Republican Senator Ron Johnson objected, forcing clerks to read the whole bill out loud. He said on Twitter, "I'm going to make the Senate clerk read the Democrats' $1.9 trillion bill, all several hundred pages of it. Then I'm going to offer amendments, many amendments. We need to highlight the abuse. This is not a COVID relief bill." He also called it a boondoggle for Democrats, which is a fancy word for a waste of money or time. All 600-plus pages of the bill took more than 10.5 hours until just after 2 o'clock Friday morning. Johnson says so often they rush these massive bills that no one has time to read it.
So at a minimum, somebody ought to read it, and this will give everybody time. Quite honestly, as the clerks are reading it, we can read it as well. Our staffs will have time to consider what the provisions are to start crafting amendments.
Several hours into the reading, Johnson tweeted, "Listening to the clerks read the Democrats' $1.9 trillion bill, it's amazing how many times you hear the year 2022, 2023, and beyond." He went on to say, "I thought all this COVID relief spending was needed now." So what are some of these areas? There are 5 sections of the bill that include some $10 billion for the global response to the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as several $100 million for pandemic-related efforts, both domestically and internationally. Under the first of these, Section 10001 gives $204 million for the State Department to prevent or prepare for the virus, either domestically or internationally, through September 2022. Under Section 10002, another $41 million goes to virus-related expenses for the U.S. Agency for International Development. Section 10003 has the biggest portion of the spending. Nearly $9 billion goes to global virus response. This includes $3.75 billion to programs to fight HIV or AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, as well as another $3.9 billion for international disaster relief, including reconstruction, health services, and emergency food security needs. Another $930 million is for virus-related economic and stabilizing requirements, and $905 million is for global health activities, such as vaccine development. Under the 2 remaining sections, $500 million goes to virus-related humanitarian response efforts and $580 million for multilateral assistance, such as for international organizations under the UN Global Humanitarian Response Plan for the virus. Johnson went on to note on Twitter the relief isn't free, saying $1.9 trillion in additional debt is $5,800 per person. Added to the $4 trillion of earlier relief bills, it is a debt burden of $18,000 per person. Hours after the reading, the next step is the vote-a-rama, when they'll vote on amendments to the bill. A vote-a-rama is when the party in the minority, in this case the Republicans, can force on-the-record votes on amendments, which are added to the bill if they receive a simple majority. Johnson is also trying to arrange shifts of Republicans, so there'll always be enough on the floor to vote on the amendments. Senator Mitt Romney said he and some other Republicans are working on several amendments. He noted a lot of the spending is not going to where it's needed. That is wasteful. That is adding debt to our next generations. But Democrats say now is the time to be bold. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor Friday, "We need to get this done. It would be so much better if we could in a bipartisan way, but we need to get it done." Adding, "We are going to power through and finish this bill however long it takes." The package would shell out $400 billion to a new round of $1,400 stimulus payments, $130 billion for schools, and $350 billion for states, cities, U.S. territories, and others. Other measures include public health funding for vaccine distribution and virus testing. If the Senate approves the bill, it will be sent back to the House for final approval and then to the President for his signature. Democrats hope to get the bill passed this weekend. Now let's turn to the controversial election reform bill, or H.R. 1. The nearly 800-page bill would impose requirements on voting procedures across the entire country. While it passed in the House with 220 Democrats voting for it, one Democrat broke ranks and voted against it. Senior Congressman Benny Thompson from Mississippi sided with all Republican representatives in voting it down. He tells the Epoch Times why he voted no. In an emailed statement, he wrote, "My constituents oppose the redistricting portion of the bill, as well as the section on public finances. I always listen and vote in the interest of my constituents." Thompson represents Mississippi's 2nd District, which is mostly black. Districts have to have the same number of people, so after the census every 10 years, new boundaries have to be drawn to make sure that's the case. Normally, state lawmakers and governors redraw the boundaries, but H.R. 1 would require independent commissions or a 3-judge court to do the restricting. Taking restricting away from elected officials and giving it to independent entities has been an aim of progressive Democrats for a while. They argue independent redistricting makes elections more competitive. But communities of color have often objected to this, suggesting the move may strip minorities of their political leverage. The dissenting Democrat supported an earlier version of the bill in 2019, and he even co-sponsored H.R. 1, but said he couldn't vote for it. Thompson's nay vote is notable because he is usually a dependable ally of Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He also criticized former President Trump for questioning the 2020 election. Thompson voted down this bill called the For the People Act, which codifies many of the controversial practices that brought allegations of voter fraud in this very election. Those include making voter registration for every citizen automatic. People would have to opt out, and expanding the use of mail-in ballots. Another section of the bill would affect campaign finances. It would amend the Constitution so that, quote, Congress and the states may regulate and set limits on the raising and spending of money to influence elections and may distinguish between national persons and artificial entities like corporations that are created by law, including by prohibiting such artificial entities from spending money to influence elections. The bill goes further by reducing the number of members on the Federal Election Commission and to limit those who could serve on the commission. House Republicans denounced the bill on the floor before the vote, noting portions that would require funding for campaigns. Democrats, meanwhile, say the bill would bring necessary changes to elections. Now let's turn to the nursing home scandal. New York officials confirmed on Thursday they left out nursing home death data from a COVID-19 report last year. The New York Times, writing Governor Andrew Cuomo's aides, rewrote a report to hide the number of nursing home resident deaths in the pandemic. According to the New York Times, the report written by state health officials showed over 9,000 virus deaths among nursing home residents by June. Cuomo's most senior aides did not want to make that number public. They rewrote the report to take that figure out. That's according to interviews and documents reviewed by the New York Times. According to a chart reviewed by the outlet, the health department's data put the death toll about 50% higher than the figure then being cited publicly by the Cuomo administration. According to the Wall Street Journal, the July report only focused on those who died in nursing homes, dismissing those who died in the hospital, but got infected in the nursing home first. The Journal went on to say the report showed 6,432 nursing home residents died from the outbreak, which was a significant undercount. A report released by the New York State Department of Health claims a March 2020 order from state officials was not to blame for the thousands of nursing home deaths related to the virus. The statements came in response to the Wall Street Journal article alleging the omission. The report has come under fire. Representative Steve Scalise says in a letter, the report contains numerous flaws. According to the letter, the report dismisses the nursing home order as a driving factor in patient deaths because the peak in nursing deaths did not align with peak hospital readmission. While Cuomo's administration rescinded the policy in May, it continues to insist the policy did not lead to more deaths involving COVID-19. Now, many are pointing out last year, when the report on nursing home deaths first came out in July, Cuomo dismissed it as pure politics at the time. Health officials eventually did release how many nursing home residents died outside of the hospitals. That was after New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's a Democrat, put pressure by accusing the state of underreporting the number of nursing home deaths by as much as 50%. A top aide to Cuomo told state lawmakers in February that the data was withheld because of fears it would be used against us by critics, noting that former President Donald Trump had urged the Department of Justice to probe the state's COVID-19 policies. Cuomo has been facing increasing calls to resign from both sides of the aisle amid the nursing home scandal and allegations of sexual harassment. Cuomo said on Wednesday he is not resigning, saying there's a lot happening at the moment and he is trying to take care of it. And now for some good news. A joint months-long law enforcement operation has rescued 150 missing children in Tennessee. The children found range from 3 to 17 years old. Authorities announced that Operation Volunteer Strong recovered 150 out of 240 missing children identified across the state. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation director said in a statement that hundreds of children go missing in the state every month. He said some of them are runaways, while others are caught in custody battles. Some of the rescued children were found in other states, and some are or could be human trafficking victims. The operation was launched on January 4th after months of planning. According to the TBI, most of the 150 children recovered will receive services from the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. That means they could be placed in foster homes or group homes, or receive other specialized care. Authorities are still working to find the other 90 missing children. U.S. Marshal for the Middle District of Tennessee, Danny King, said in a statement, "We can't give up. We need the public, the media, and all law enforcement to not give up." He's also asking for help, saying if you see something or know something, say something. We cannot give up and stop searching for our most vulnerable and those who cannot help themselves. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and have a wonderful weekend.